This is not going to be fun. I said it in my post-game video after the Packers game, and I'm going to say it again. I did not want to get on this channel and say negative things about Russell Wilson in his first game back from his first significant injury since he entered the NFL. I didn't, but his play forced me to. So we are going to revisit the mess that was Wilson against the Green Bay Packers on Sunday afternoon. It is Wilson Wednesday. First time we've had this in a little while because there was no Wilson to talk about on Wednesday until this week. And unfortunately, he gave us a game to forget. One of the worst games he's ever played. And probably the worst I've felt about Wilson coming out of a game out of the, closing in on 200, or, 170, 180 games he's played in Seattle that counted in his career. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at some of these advanced metrics for Wilson because, again, I don't need to tell you guys that he sucked against the Packers if you just look at his completion percentage and his yards and his interceptions. We know. I don't need to tell you guys that. You guys are smart enough to know that Wilson sucked, but let's get into how he played. So we're going to start with air yards and yards after the catch. Russell Wilson's air yards went through the roof this week. They were 9.1. They are now sitting at 9.7. It was never this high under Schottenheimer. I don't think it's ever been this high in his career. His air yards per completion, however, is falling to 6.3, which is about as low as it ever was under Schottenheimer, and probably one of the lowest numbers of his career. This is all kind of amusing given the fact that his yards after the catch is higher than it had been under Schottenheimer. It's up at 6.1. So what I parse from this is that Wilson is going for broke more than ever. He is launching the ball deep downfield more than ever. But he's not hitting nearly as much as we're used to. His air yards per pass attempt is up near 10, but his air yards per pass completion down below 6.5. So he's trying to win the lottery, but he ain't buying the right ticket. That's what I get from that. Now, the yards after the catch being up is kind of interesting. It's kind of interesting trying to translate what that could mean. But yeah, that's the thing that alarms me, guys, really. It's not just that he played bad. It's how he's playing bad. It's the fact that it seems like he just doesn't get it yet. And I was all for giving him some time to figure this stuff out. But him not getting it to that degree in that game and to have numbers like this through 6 starts, 5.5 full games, that's weird. Because it's not working. Like, our offense isn't playing good. If we had a top 5 offense, then of course I wouldn't say anything. But you get rid of a guy like Schottenheimer, bring in a guy like Waldron, who was from that McVay tree, who uses a lot of quick, short passes typically, and your air yards go up. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I don't get that. All right, moving on to accuracy. It's not a pretty picture this week either. He has 26 bad throws now. I believe he had 8 bad throws against the Packers. Yes, 8. I'm not going to kill him for that because his finger was messed up and that clearly affected his throws. That just kind of is what it is. He also had quite a few throws that were considered to be on target. They gave him 24. I think he only had 20 completions, so they must have given him credit for some drops on the part of the receivers. But his on-target throw rate is up close to where it always is, and his bad throw percentage is still around where it always was. So not a good game for him in terms of accuracy, but overall he's still having a fine season. Not going to go after Wilson for making inaccurate throws with a bad finger. I get it. Maybe he shouldn't have been out there, but that's another discussion as far as I'm concerned. His pocket time went up a little bit. It was 2.2. It is now 2.3. So, still not as high as it was the last 3 years, which in theory is actually probably pretty good, but in practice it's not improving the way that we wanted it to improve. We wanted it to improve because he was getting the ball out of his hands faster. It's improving because the pocket's breaking down faster. And this leads to his pressure numbers. Now, there's an interesting discrepancy here. I'll go ahead and discuss that after this, but he got sacked 3 times, so he's now been sacked 16 times. He got hurried a couple times. I think it was actually just once, so up to 23. He got hit a couple times to get to 15. Total number of times pressured this season is 54. PFF only gave him, I think, 6 pressures against the Packers. This is interesting because PFF gave him 30. I don't know how to explain that, guys. I don't. I know they're using different metrics. I know they're using different standards, but I watched that game. I think Wilson got pressured more than 6 times, but nowhere near 30. So, believe what you will. I always use the PFR numbers, but PFF paints a very different picture. Possibly, if I had to guess, I don't have access to the nitty-gritty behind the stats that PFR uses, unfortunately. I would say that maybe they're not giving Wilson credit for a pressure if he holds onto the ball for 6-7 seconds and then gets pressured. But I'm not sure. That's a really weird one because that discrepancy should not ever really happen. And speaking of PFR, they actually have his pressure rate down as low as it was last year and lower than it was in 2019 or 2020. So, according to PFR, Wilson had plenty of time back there, which, again, discrepancies between PFF and PFR are standard, but a discrepancy that big, somebody needs to check their numbers. And I'm inclined to believe it's probably both. I think they're both probably wrong, and the reality is somewhere in the middle. But we're going to keep rolling with the PFR numbers because I've rolled with them so far. What are you going to do? All right, to wrap things up, he had a couple of scrambles against the Packers, I think. Yeah, he had actually a 5. That's a little bit more than a couple. So there were quite a few plays where things just broke down and he had to take off. It makes sense that the number would be a little higher because he probably wasn't totally comfortable throwing as much as he wanted to be, so he would run if there was a opportunity to, which I support. That's something I can get behind. And a lot of play action. I think we had 9 play action snaps against the Packers, which is higher than had been the average under Wilson. He had like 7. So I do like that. I like the play action. Obviously, some people are going to say, well, it would have been more effective if we had run the ball more. But I read something after that game that said that they felt like handoffs were going to be bad for Wilson's finger, so they actually wanted to limit his handoffs as much as possible because they didn't want his finger to be in harm's way. They felt like it was actually safer to let him throw a bunch, which you don't hear that every day, but that's certainly an interesting perspective. We can debate about that in the comments if you want to, but that's Wilson Wednesday for you. So there's a few different ways to translate this data, but the number that I keep coming back to is 9.7. 9.7 air yards per pass attempt, higher than it had ever been under Schottenheimer, probably the highest of Wilson's career outside of maybe his first year or two in the league. The fact that we brought in a coordinator specifically to design a quicker passing game, and these are the results we're getting, something's not right there. So I'm out of here. Peace out, go Hawks. But that's the main takeaway from this video for me today. What is up with the way Wilson is playing? Either he doesn't get it, or somebody else involved in this organization really doesn't get it, because this is the exact opposite of what we were sold.